I went book shopping. I went to Book 66, which is a massive warehouse down in the south of England in Hemel Hempstead. So if you want to come and see Book 66 and come and see my haul, then come and join me in this video. So I'm just making my way to Book 66 in a moment. At the moment I'm parked in my driveway, but that's where we're going today. We're heading to Book 66, which is a big warehouse down south from where I actually am. It's quite a long drive for me, anywhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours to get there. It really depends on the traffic, I suppose. But the last 2 times that I've went, the traffic was moving fairly easily, so hopefully that will be the case today. So I obviously don't need any more books. Nobody needs any more books, but I do really enjoy going to Book 66. They have a really good selection. And they're not recent books, so they're not books that have been released in the last year, but maybe books from a couple of years ago. But I've actually come across quite a few authors that I've tried in there that I might not otherwise have picked up if I hadn't seen them in Book 66 and had such a good discount. Now, they do say, like, when you go in that you shouldn't be looking for specific books or specific authors, because there's absolutely no guarantee of what was in there. So unless you go in there on a weekly basis and you have a good idea of what the stock is, you just don't know what's going to be there. So my last visit was October. I think it might have been October time that I went, or possibly the beginning of November. So it's been a couple of months has passed, so all the stock has probably rotated in there since then. But I got to be honest, like, between my last visit before that visit, which was February, that was quite some time, and there were still some of the same book titles in there between February and the October. So now we're visiting right at the end of February, beginning of March. So I do have some ideas of some things that I'm looking for, but obviously I'm not going to be too disappointed if I can't find them, because, as I say, there's no guarantee of what you want to be in there is going to be in there. But I'm really hoping that I can pick up Isaac Asimov's Robot series. I initially picked up the Foundation series in there, and then also some of the short story collection series in there, and that's where I actually got Nightfall from, which I did a read of, I think, in December time, and I absolutely loved it. It was my first Isaac Asimov I'd ever read, and I just want to read everything that Isaac Asimov has written now. So yeah, that's what I'm mainly looking for today, but I'm sure even if I don't find that, there will be a couple of other nice surprises in there. So let's get going, and hopefully we'll get there in good time. So I had a really good trip. It really didn't take me long to get in. Today I came in the afternoon rather than the morning, and they do say that there's less of a wait if you do that, but I obviously hadn't done that until I came today, and yeah, I literally waited for less than 5 minutes before they allowed me entry. They had everything that I actually wanted, so I managed to get all of the Isaac Asimov books from the Robot series I was looking for, apart from one of them, which they didn't seem to have, but I didn't even see a place for it on the shelf, so I just don't think that they were carrying it anyway. I've also managed to get loads and loads of really good books, ones that I sort of had on my Amazon wish list, which I wasn't expecting to be in there, and then I've managed to pick up a couple of other things that I never even heard of that look really good. So when we get home, then we can have a look through the haul and see exactly what I got, but it was absolutely totally worth the hour and a half journey. So now I'm about to start my drive back up north. So again, I'm hoping that it's not going to take longer than an hour and a half, because I've not yet had any lunch, or I haven't even had a drink since I left the house this morning, so I could really do with a cup of tea now as well. But yeah, I'll speak to you in a bit. Okay, so we are back home now. I've managed to have some lunch and I've had a cup of tea, and I'm just really excited to show you all the books that I managed to get from Book 66. I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to show you a little bit more inside the warehouse, but they do have some rules when you go in there. If you're going to film, that you can't film with other people in the shot, and it's a really quite a popular place to go, which is why sometimes you have to queue for a really long time to get in. Now obviously I was really lucky today. Today was the quickest I've ever got into the warehouse, but there's normally like massive queues outside, which means there's lots of people in the warehouse, and even though there weren't that many queues today, there were still a lot of people in the warehouse, so it's really difficult to actually get a shot down, you know, the racking without anybody else in it, but hopefully from the few snippets that I've managed to show you, you get an idea of how the books are sort of displayed in there and the sort of racking that they're using. And as you can also see from the little snippets that I've managed to show you, they had lots of Isaac Asimov in there today. They had the Foundation series, they had the short story series, and they had the robot series, and they also had a couple of other things in there as well, which I'll show you. Pretty much most of what Isaac Asimov has written that is published I could find in that warehouse today. They also had another bit of racking that I think it was like Mark Connolly was the author. They had a lot of his stuff, and they also had like loads of Danielle Steele. They had Stieg Larsson, and then they had a bit of Toni Morrison stuff in there, and there's just too many authors for me to name really, but there was a lot of really, really good stuff in there today. Now, just to say before we get into this video, I don't normally do haul videos. They're not really my thing, mainly because I sort of I do buy books quite frequently, but I also unhaul books quite frequently. You know, as I read them, if I don't really like them, then I tend to give them to little free libraries or give them away to charity shops. And likewise, when I'm buying books, I sort of buy one here and one there, and you know, it's not that often that I have one huge big haul together, but also I don't really see the point in showing you all of the stuff that I just bought if I haven't actually read it, because for the most part, like, everybody's got bookshops around them, you can all walk in and see what books are available to buy. But the difference is here is that Book 66 is not a regular bookshop. Monday to Friday it is a book warehouse which is servicing businesses that buy books in bulk from them. And then on 2 weekends of the month, the warehouse actually opens to the general public, and you're allowed to go in there and basically buy what you would like off the shelves that they've put out. And it's a really, really great deal because you only have to pay 30% of the listed book price. So it's called Book Club Book 66. However, Book 66 only exists on those weekends that they say that they're open to the public, which, as I said, is 2 weekends out of a month usually. If you try to turn up Monday to Friday, they won't know anything about it because the warehouse is just operating its normal business hours. So I think it's a really nice thing that whoever owns that warehouse, that they do that and they open that out to the public and only charge us like 30% of the listed price. I think it makes reading really accessible and also owning books really accessible to people. And I did chat to the gentleman in there, and he said originally they opened it really for the local people around Hemel Hempstead to visit, but it has become that popular that people travel from all over the country to go there because obviously they're offering really good books in there and really good deal. So, you know, obviously they're not selling anything that was released last year or this year, but a few years previously you're sure to find stuff in there. You know, and as I mentioned before, you don't necessarily know what you're going to find in there, but there is a really, really good selection. It's a massive warehouse, and I just really, really appreciate what they're doing. So I went there for the first time last year in February, and then I went again in October. So today's visit was my third visit there, which again I've done on the last weekend of February. Now, because I don't live that near there, so I just go down a couple of times a year and I take some fun money down, and then, you know, I buy a big haul. So in this haul we've got 30 books. Now, I did buy overall 33 books, and that entire cost of that, to me, at 30%, like only paying 30% of the cost price, was 105 English pounds. So imagine that, 33 books for 105 English pounds. That's amazing. Had I paid for that at full price, it would have been around about 360 pounds. So, you know, for me it was like worth to do the hour-and-a-half drive there, the hour-and-a-half drive back, to get, you know, that many books for that lower price. But yeah, one of the reasons why we're going to do this haul today is a lot of people are interested in Book 66. So, you know, as I say, I did my shop on the very last day of February, so it's the 28th of February, and people want to know what's in the warehouse. So it's really difficult to say exactly what's in there because I don't know how quickly they rotate their stock. But based on when I just went, these are the things that I've managed to pick up. So if you are planning a trip to Book 66 very soon, you might be able to find some of these items in the warehouse. That's one reason why I'm making this video, really, is because you know, Book 66 isn't like a bookshop that you can just walk in and know what's going to be in there. It's a working warehouse and the stuff is changing all the time. So this is just to give a bit of an idea of what you might find in Book 66, And two, if you're planning a trip there soon, then you might find these titles in there. So what I would say is with the Asimov books that I've bought, I've actually seen those in there for like over a year now. So unless people go mad and buy them all up, they should probably be there, you know, at least for another month or so. So this is quite a big haul. As I said, I bought 33 books, but I'm only going to show you 30 today because 3 of them were gifts for other people. So in case that they might accidentally watch this video, I don't want to spoil the surprise for them. And obviously, you know, their books, it's not like I'm going to be reading their books on my channel, so you wouldn't really be seeing them anyway. So we're just going to stick to the books that I've got that you will be seeing in video challenges now over the next year as I get through this pile. I am not going to read the back of every single book because it's going to take me too long to get through this haul. So I'm just going to sort of give you a little bit of information as to why I picked that book up, or you know, why I was attracted to it. Okay, so we're going to start off with Isaac Asimov because, as I said, as I was getting into my car to go there, I was looking for the Robot series because I have the Foundation series and I have most of the short story collections. So I was looking for the Robot series and I was really successful. And I actually found 6 out of the 7. So we'll do this one at a time. So we've got the Robots of Dawn. We've got Robots and Empire. iRobot. The Rest of the Robots. The Naked Sun. And the Caves of Steel. Now, as I said, there is one more in this collection, but I think it's a newer one. Like, these are the older ones, and then I've noticed in the last year they've been collecting together stories of Isaac Asimov that weren't published, and then creating a newer collection, if you see what I mean. Like, they've done that in the stories, like short stories collection. So I think that's what that book is in here, which is why it's not going to be available in book 66, because I think they've only just probably put it together in the last 12 months. But I'm really, really happy with this. I really enjoyed Nightfall, which I'd picked up from book 66 last year. I thought it was absolutely outstanding, and I'd never read from Isaac Asimov before. So that started off an Isaac Asimov journey for me when I read that. And I really, really love his work, so I'm really looking forward to reading all of this, and I just can't wait to read all of the stuff that he published, really. So I was also really pleased to find these 3 Isaac Asimov books in there as well. So we've got The Stars Like Dust, The Currents of Space, and Pebble in the Sky. Now, these 3 were on my Amazon wish list, and I didn't realise I would find them in book 66. They are like the Galactic Empire series, and they are some of the first, I think the first 3 novels that Isaac Asimov ever published. So I was really pleased to be able to get these as well, because I wasn't expecting to. Okay, so now we've covered the things that I went in there looking for those things, which is a bit naughty. You shouldn't really go in thinking, oh, I want to find that. But because Isaac Asimov had been there when I went last February and when I went in October, I thought there's a good chance that it might still be there, and it was, so I'm really happy about that. So we'll go into all of the other stuff that I bought. So I think I'm going to start with classics. So the first classic that I've picked up was Little Women by Louisa M. Alcott. So book 66 has these Cranford collection books in, and they are really, really, really nice. You know, I'm just going to open one for you. So they have like illustrations around the text as well, which is really nice. And I see a lot of people go into book 66 and they just have a basket full of these. They do have loads of different ones. Over time I've picked up Little Women from there, and I have Dracula, and I have 1984. I think those are the 3 that I've already got. But anyway, I decided to pick up Little Women because I really enjoyed this book as a child, but I don't actually have a copy because I think I read a family member's copy. And then potentially I might have also borrowed it at the library at some point. So no, I didn't have my own copy, and I really want to do a reread of it this year after I saw it, a theatre production of it the other year, and remembered how much I enjoyed it. The other thing that I really like about these Cranford collection copies is there's no slip cover on them. It really annoys me when you're trying to read a hardback and the slip cover keeps moving, so I normally just take them off, you know. So I really appreciate the fact that this is like painted on to the cover. It's very, very pretty. And then that leads me to my second one that I've bought, which is the Collected Works of H.P. Lovecraft. Now this is an absolutely stunning book. This one has sprayed edges, the Little Women one doesn't. And I've not seen these Cranford collection with sprayed edges before. So this is quite unique for having that, I think. But it is absolutely beautiful. Let's see the result. This one doesn't sort of have the illustrations that Little Women has. I don't know if you can really see the text. That's how it sort of looks inside. Now, I've never read any H.P. Lovecraft before, but I do know somebody who really enjoys this work, and because I like horror books, they were like, you should definitely start reading these. So I'd never had any intention of buying this, but when I saw it in book 66, I thought, well, do you know what, like if that collection is so nice looking, maybe I'll buy that one and I'll start reading H.P. Lovecraft from this collection. So just to give you an idea of the kind of discount that you're getting, as I said, you're only paying 30% of the listed price. Now this book at full price is 30 English pounds. So paying only 30%, I only paid like £9 for this book, which I think is really good. The rest of the Cranford collection, which is like this one, they normally retail for £20, so you're paying like £6 for these when you go into book 66. So I thought that was worth mentioning. These are the only two hardbacks that I've bought in my haul. So then with regards to other classics that I've bought, I've picked up Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. Now I really like dystopian books, so this is a really famous dystopian novel and I've never read it yet, so I thought it was about time that I got around to it. So, you know, considering that this was £11 full price and you're paying just over £3 for it in book 66, I've really no excuse not to read this book. Okay, I also bought To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. Now, I'm really interested to read Virginia Woolf this year, and on my reading objectives, I've actually got a specific reading objective which says read a book by Virginia Woolf, because I've never read anything that she has read. But last year I was reading a BBC article where they said that they had gone out and surveyed people in other countries and asked everybody else all around the world what their 100 favourite British books by British authors were. And Virginia Woolf scored in the top 3, and I think it was To the Lighthouse might have been in position 1 and Mrs. Dalloway was in position 3. Now I have a copy of Mrs. Dalloway that I haven't read yet, and I thought that I might obviously read that one for that particular challenge. I actually bought it for that challenge point, but seeing To the Lighthouse in book 66, I was like, well, actually I'll buy this one because it doesn't really matter if I read which one ever I read. Hopefully I'll read both of them. But it seems if the rest of the world is saying that Virginia Woolf is the best British author pretty much to come out of this country, then I should really, you know, educate myself and read a couple of her novels and see, you know, what I think of her, because everybody else is having a great time with her. I was also pleased to pick up Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut. But Kurt Vonnegut is not somebody that I've ever read before, but I have been hearing people say that you know, he's a classic American author and people really like his work. So I thought, well, if this one is available, I thought the premise on this one sounded quite interesting, so I have picked this one up to give him a try. I've also become aware of an author this last year called Toni Morrison. And she has been a prize-winning author, but I've also seen some other YouTubers talking about her books and just saying how much they really rated them. So they had quite a few Toni Morrison books on offer in book 66. So I thought that I would just try one and see what I think. So I've picked up one called Jazz. And the reason that I've picked up this one is I really like jazz music and I enjoy the jazz scene. So I'm sort of hoping that there's going to be this is going to be situated in the jazz scene somehow. So I will give that one a go. And then the last classic that I've picked up was Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. So this is a Pulitzer Prize winning book. And I think, you know, quite a lot of YouTubers have been talking about this in the last year. And it's, you know, either people are talking about the fact that they've read it or you can see it on the shelf behind them. Now, I've never really read Western before. I think the closest I've ever got to reading a Western is the Gunslinger series. sorry, not the Gunslinger series, the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, because I read The Gunslinger at the beginning of this month and I thought this kind of is reading like a Western. And I didn't mind it, I actually really enjoyed it. And I did like to watch Westerns on the TV when I was a kid. So I think I probably will like this, but like on the front of the book it says if you only ever read one Western novel in your life, read this one. So I don't think that you have to be a hardcore Western reader to enjoy this novel. I don't think that it would have won the Pulitzer Prize if that was the case, so I think it's going to be perfectly accessible. I also like the fact that it's quite a big novel, because I really enjoy getting into big novels because I like spending time with the characters. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this, and I'm really happy that I found it in there. Okay, so the next ones I'm going to move on to is this one called The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. So this was also on my Amazon wishlist, and I was really happy to see this in book 66. This is basically a retelling of Bram Stoker's Dracula, from what I can tell. So anybody who's been around on my channel for a little bit, I keep saying I do enjoy vampire stories. So I'm really hoping that I'm going to enjoy this one. And I think it just sounds really, really good, and I think the reviews for it sound good as well. So the next set of books I'm going to go through are ones that are kind of related to series that I'm reading. So we'll start off with this pile here. So I've got 4 here by an author called Carl Hiaasen. So I've picked up Lucky You, Striptease, Sick Puppy, and Native Tongue. So some of these are in a series called the Skink novel series, and I think some of them might be standalones. But I discovered Carl Hiaasen last year when I very first went to book 66, and I saw a couple of his books in there. I thought they looked quite quirky and fun, so I'd read one, and it was really funny. The sense of humour is really dark at times, it's really quirky, it's off the wall, it almost reminds me kind of like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, in a way, in like you feel that everybody in the story might be on drugs, but it's quite funny, and as I say, just radical, off the wall. And I think that if you want sort of like a novel that's going to make you laugh and isn't going to dwell on anything too serious, especially if you like going on holiday for a holiday read, these are really good for that. So I'm really hoping that these 4 will be as good as the one that I've already read. The next one is called Dying to Live by Michael Stanley. Now this is part of the Detective Kubo series, which is like a detective series set in Botswana, and they deal with like really serious crimes from serial killers. So I only have one in this series called Deadly Harvest. And that one sounds really good, I just haven't got round to reading it yet. But then I noticed that they had another one in there when I went in, so I never actually really see these for sale in Waterstones or any of the big bookshops, and it's never been recommended to me on Amazon either. So as they don't seem that easy to get hold of, I was like, well, I'm just going to pick up this one now that I've seen it, because I sort of feel I am going to enjoy this series. So yeah, it was worth picking up, I think. And then I've got Gregory Maguire's Son of a Witch. Now, I bought some books off a book website a while back, and they had this offer that if you spent over X amount, they would send you a free book. And out of the free books that they were offering, I wasn't really interested in any of them, or I already had them. But they had Oz, which is the first book in this series. So I said, yeah, okay, like I'll take that one. So when it arrived, I sort of read the back and started to do a bit of research into it. And it's actually like a retelling of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. But it's a more adult retelling, it seems really creepy, and just really up my street, really, like the kind of thing that I'd like. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. And when I went into book 66, they had that, but they had the rest of the series. So there are 4 books in this series. So obviously I don't know if I really like this series yet, so I want to get into it. But this is the second book, and I actually thought the premise on this sounded better than book number 1. So normally if you're trying to determine if you like a series, normally like I'll read book 1 and then normally book 2 and then see where it goes from there. So as book 2 was in there on offer, I was like, okay, I'll go for that one. And then the final sort of series type one I've bought is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. So I bought last year from book 66 Times Convert by Deborah Harkness. I was really interested in the blurb on the back because it was talking about a vampire that falls in love with a non-immortal, a non-immortal, so a mortal person. And I thought that sounded really interesting because, as I said before, quite like vampire stories. But then when I started to look up at the book online, I realised it's like number 5 in a series, and I had not realised that at the time when I picked it up. So I've not yet tried to read it because I'm not sure if it's going to be a bit weird trying to read book 5 out of a series. So as I was in book 66, I had a look, and they did have book number 1 in the series, which is this one. So my feeling is if I read this one, then it should set the tone for the world and the characters. And then, I'll be able to see then if I can just pick up book 5 without having to read all the in-between books. Or, maybe I'll really enjoy this so much I'll want to read all the in-between books. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I thought, well, I'll get number 1 at least. See how I go with that and see how, who all the characters are and what the world is like. And then I can decide whether to just try and crack on with book 5 or if, I need to find the other books. Okay, so the rest of the books I've got are basically books that I bought just because I saw them and I thought, oh, they look really interesting. I'd not heard of them before, or I had heard of them and I've seen other people review them and I thought, oh, it's time maybe I read that. So I've got The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. I've never read any of Peter Swanson's work, but I do like a thriller. Thriller's got me back into reading, really. Now, I'm not reading so much of them these days, but I do still enjoy a good one. And this one always gets really, really good reviews. So I thought, while it's there, then I'll pick this one up and give it a go and let you know if it is a top thriller, like people keep saying it is. There's this Maggie O'Farrell, After You'd Gone, I picked up. I thought the blurb on the back of this sounds really good, but I also know that Maggie O'Farrell is enjoying a bit of infamy at the moment because her book Hamnet has been made into a film. So she won the Women's Prize for Fiction with Hamnet, and now they've made a film of it, which is just coming out of the cinema, or has just come out of the cinema. So her name is pretty much everywhere at the moment. And as of, I've never actually read any of her books, although I always see them in the bookstore, and I think I've purchased 1 or 2 at this point that I haven't got around to reading yet, but I always think her books sound really, really, really good. And I wasn't expecting to see her in book 66, so I saw this one and I thought, why not, I'll pick that one up. I've picked up Return to the Dalagut Dream Department Store. So this one, I really like the sound of this one. However, I hadn't realised until I got home that this is book 2. There's a 1 and a 2, and I've never actually read number 1. Number 1 is called Dalagut Dream Department Store, and I've seen that in Waterstones. I thought, oh, that looks kind of, good, like kind of quirky and fun. So when I saw this in book 66, because the cover's very similar, I thought that this was it. But no, this is the second book. Although I have to admit, after reading the blurb on the back of this, I think it sounds better than book 1. So I'm not going to bother and go and buy book 1, I don't think. I'm just going to try and read this on its own because the blurb on the back makes it seem like it can just be read in isolation. Basically, we're following our character who works for the dream industry, and in this book she's working in the complaints department. So I just think that sounds really fun, actually. This book is also translated as well, so the author is Mai Lee, and it's translated by Sandy Joseon Lee. So I'm not sure what that's translated from. I have to do a bit more research into that, but when I read that, I'll let you know more details on that. And then the next 2 books are ones that are linked to the Women's Prize for Fiction, so I do really enjoy the Women's Prize for Fiction books. So we have The Most Fun We Ever Had by Claire Lombardo. So this was long-listed for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2020. And when I read the back, it's basically about this family called the Sorensen family, and there's 6 members in this family, and they all seem to have a lot of secrets and a lot of drama that they're trying to keep hidden from each other. So I think that this sounds like it's going to be a really, really good read. And then I'm really excited about this one. This one's called NW by Zadie Smith. Now, I've never read anything by Zadie Smith either. This was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2013, so it's quite an old book, although I've not heard of it. But this one seems to be, it says on the back of here as a quote from A.N. Wilson, that not since Dickens has there been a better observer of London scenes. So I think this is going to be some kind of observational book on probably working class in London. But I think that this sounds really interesting, so I'm definitely keen to give this a go. as I say, I think this author has published quite a few other books as well, so maybe I found like a new author that I'd like. And then the last book that I bought is the only non-fiction book that I bought in the trip. So it's called Different Not Less by Chloe Hayden. Okay, so I have mentioned a couple of times on my channel before that I am autistic. So I was diagnosed as an adult about 3 or 4 years ago. Now, obviously I've had troubles relating to my autism throughout my entire life. I just didn't know specifically that it was autism that was, you know, causing that trouble for me. So getting a diagnosis was, you know, quite liberating, because it meant that I was able to then look into what autism is and then actually understand how that was affecting me, and, you know, how, you know, what I might be able to do about it. But, you know, as an adult growing up to learn this diagnosis, especially if it's a diagnosis that you never really suspected for your entire life, and then to find out that you know you have autism, I would still say that I'm still coming to terms with that as an adult, and I'm still understanding what that means for me, and I'm still trying to understand how to navigate conversations with other people, especially other people that have known me my entire life, who didn't really know much about autism themselves, and, you know, were then looking to me for answers, or, well, what does this mean? You know, because it's like, well, I don't necessarily know, I've got to figure that out myself as well. You know, and obviously autism is a disability. So again, as an adult, to be told that you have something which makes you disabled and you never, like, you know, realised that you had a disability before, you just thought something else was wrong with you, or whatever, you know, that's again quite a thing to have to take on board. So I think that this book sounds really, really good, because this is a neurodivergence guide to embracing your true self and finding your happily ever after. So as I'm still on, you know, this inner quest to understand my neurodivergent self and to, you know, try and explain that a little bit to the people around me, I thought this book sounded like it might help me to do that. So when I read that, if anybody's interested, I'll let you know if I found it helpful at all, and if I thought it's worth picking up if you're neurodivergent. I'm sort of assuming that this is relevant for people who've always known that they're neurodivergent and people who've just found out, but I guess I'll find out when I read it. So yeah, that is my entire haul from book 66, minus 3 books that I'm not going to show you, because obviously, as I said, they were gift for other people. So I really hope that you've enjoyed looking at this haul, and that essentially, if you are planning a trip to book 66, it's giving you some idea of books that you might like to find in there. But if you don't know about book 66, or you're not from the UK and you've never heard of book 66, and you've got, you know, you're probably not going to visit book 66, yeah, we have this book warehouse, which seems to be this one-off warehouse in the UK, and these are the kind of things that I've managed to find in it. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please press the thumbs up button, and if you'd like to see any of my future content, please press the subscribe button. I've really enjoyed making this video, and, you know, who doesn't love book shopping? I do. As I don't film many hauls, so you're not really going to see that many on this channel, so hopefully you've got your kicks from that one. I know I have, because I said, who doesn't love book shopping? Anyway, I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye!